Thank you very much, Dr. Courtney. I would just like to make sure that everyone can hear me. So good morning, everyone. Is my voice clear before I proceed?
It's perfectly clear. Good morning.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. I truly hope that you and your families are well and that you're all coping well with this very new situation for all of us. Dr. Courtney, thank you very much for the introduction. So uh, I would like to just briefly introduce myself. My name is Elma Atic. I work in the Academic Advising Development section, which is one of the support units within the Center for Academic Advising at Qatar University. At our institution, we have a centralized model of academic advising with about 73 professional academic advisors who report directly to the center director along with the two support units. And I work in one of these units. And I've been working there for about 10 years now. So today I'm planning to tell you about our story about academic advising. So what has happened within this decade for the period of 10 years or just about 10 years. So basically, I will very briefly try to talk about the different structures and different models of academic advising that we have implemented at Qatar University over the past decade. I'll share with you what I think we have learned from piloting these various models and how did our experience help us in the recent pivot to online advising. So this is really the core of our session today. I want to really reflect upon why is this relevant? Why is it important to talk about different models at this time when everyone is talking about the online services? And I'll stress out on the point that our experience piloting different models and the learning that happened really helped us in pivoting to online advising in a very smooth way. So I'll do my best to present our story as briefly as possible, as I would really like to focus on the online pivot and hear from you and your experience in terms of how are you transitioning to this online environment? What are the strategies you are employing at your institution? So I honestly hope that you will be ready to share your experience. How are you coping? And that the session will be engaging. Basically, before I start sharing our story, just very briefly, I would like to talk about what are the existing structures and existing models out there worldwide in universities across the world. So basically, there are three major structures of academic advising. So centralized, shared, and decentralized structure of academic advising. Within each of these structures, there are specific models of academic advising. So within the centralized structure, there, as you can see, there is only one model, which is the self-contained model. And in this specific model, academic advising is delivered by professional academic advisors who report directly, who report to a central unit. That could be a center director, like in our case, or it could be the vice president, but it's a central reporting line. Usually there is one physical central space where students go to receive the advising services. However, this is not necessarily applicable. For example, in our context, we have physically located the advising offices within the colleges, but the reporting line is centralized. So what I'm trying really to say is that you can have a centralized structure, but with a decentralized physical spaces. What is unique about this model as well is that the advising services are standardized. So all advisors are providing the services in more or less standardized way, because the administration is providing the guidance, the administration is providing the support in terms of professional development and etc. Within the shared structure, there are four different models. So just briefly try to explain how they are different. The first one you can see here is the supplementary model. So in the supplementary model, each student is assigned to a department advisor. That could be a faculty, a professional advisor, or a teaching assistant, but that person reports to the department or the college. And then there is a centralized unit that provides administrative support in terms of training, conducting assessment, resources, providing resources to the staff, providing advising, etc. In the split model, again, the advising responsibilities are shared between the different stakeholders. So, but how is this one different? Is that initial advising is split between department advisors and professional advisors. So, for example, you could have all at-risk students, for example, assigned to professional advisors, while the faculty are advising, for example, good standing students. So, these responsibilities between the faculty and professional advisors are split. The dual model is probably the one where the students benefit the most. So in this model, advising functions are split, but in a way that a student is assigned to advisors from the moment they are admitted to a university until their graduation. And that will be a faculty advisor and a professional advisor. So the way faculty and professional advisors share responsibilities could be, for example, faculty focuses more on this career advising, kind of what major works best for a specific student, what is the job market for a specific major, excuse me, etc. While professional advisor will take care of interpreting institutional policies, maybe teaching students how to use technology, so more really different functions. In the total intake model, very similar to the split model, but this one there is a transition. There is a transition between moving from one advisor to another one. So initially, students are assigned to professional advisors. So as a freshman, as an undeclared student, students are assigned to professional advisor. Once they meet certain criteria, for example, declaring major, then they are reassigned to the faculty advisor. So they don't have two advisors at the same time, but really is a progression from a professional to a faculty advisor. So these are the 4 different models within the shared structure. And then, as you can see, within the decentralized structure, there are basically 2 different models. The first one is faculty only, so that's pretty self-explanatory. So all advising is provided by the faculty within the colleges, and there are no professional advisors. Of course, this could be teaching assistants or graduate assistants or research assistants, but it's really within the college, managed within the college. And then there is a satellite model, where there are different offices within each college. So there is advising in each college, within each college, and a satellite office for example, exploratory students on campus, which we don't have at our institution. So this is the one that we never piloted. So this is basically a very brief overview of what are the different structures that exist out there that different institutions have adopted as their model of academic advising. But I would like to tell you our story. So I like to think of it as a movie. Because at Qatar University, we initially we piloted so many different models from, as you can see, from each a different structure. We have piloted at least one model of academic advising. So prior to 2009, we had a decentralized faculty-only model. And then we moved to a shared supplementary model. After piloting this model for about 3 years, we decided that we need to introduce a centralized structure with self-contained model. But then again, wanted to involve faculty in a more structured way. So then we piloted the total intake model from shared structure, and then went back to the centralized structure with the self-contained model. So as you can see, our experience is very rich, and we have implemented, as I said, at least one model from each structure. what's really the reason? Why did we invest so much time piloting different models? So the reason is really that we wanted to see what really works best for our context and what really works best for our students at Qatar University. In the centralized faculty-only model, what we found out was that there was uneven delivery of advising services. So there was, again, inconsistency in quality of advising. So that was very much reflected in our satisfaction survey. So students in some colleges were very satisfied, whereas in other colleges, not so much. Also, the faculty were overwhelmed because the advising was seen as an additional task, not necessarily something that was the primary focus of the faculty. And general low satisfaction rate with advising services. As you can guess, the advantage of this model was it was really cost effective because you don't have to hire new staff, you don't have to allocate additional physical space for advising offices because faculty are using their offices. So it worked well from that point of view, but in terms of standardized and even delivery of advising services and really giving the importance to academic advising that it deserves was somewhat compromised in this model. So we conducted a study and tried to introduce a unit that would provide a support to faculty in delivering advising services. So this central unit provided professional development to faculty, and the aim was really to try to standardize advising services to provide as much support as needed. We also provided some support in terms of recruitment, but the staff that was recruited were really admin assistants who were providing academic advising. So again, the academic advising as a profession was not recognized in this model. We tried to request a space that would be dedicated only to advising services, only to the staff providing advising. And we were involved in assisting in coordination of the institutional orientation, making sure students get that initial contact between advisor and the student. And we coordinated assessment. But 3 years after piloting this model, what we found out that, again, what was discussed in the professional development and what we tried to achieve, what was our vision, was not shared by the colleges, was not implemented, because again, there was still uneven delivery of advising services. So we conducted another study and introduced a centralized model. So we centralized all advising services and went on hiring a sufficient number of professional advisors that would advise students in the colleges. We acquired the physical space for each of the college where the professional advisors would provide advising. So what was really the disadvantage of this one was it was very costly because we had to recruit new staff, we had to train, provide professional development to the new staff, and the interaction between the faculty and students was somewhat affected. Also, there was, because the advisors were reporting to the central unit, this collaboration and communication with the college was affected as well. So as you know, like if you are working in providing services to students, whether that's academic advising services or any other services, this collaboration with the college is crucial, and I'll talk more about that later. But without, whether you do it in a structured or unstructured way, our advisors were collaborating with the faculty. But this collaboration in some colleges went well, in some colleges did not go well. So what the institution wanted to do is really to try to involve faculty in a more structured way. So they feel they're involved in the advising process, they feel they are accountable for advising, etc. So we did another study. And the suggested model was the total intake model. In this model, the advising services were split between the professional and faculty advisor. This is the way we decided to divide the responsibilities. So professional advisors were advising freshmen, sophomore students, as well as at-risk students in our case. and the faculty advisors started providing services to the junior and senior students. What was really challenge in this model, as you can guess, again, was collaboration, and also articulating clearly what are the responsibilities of professional versus faculty advisors. Not so much between the faculty and professional advisors, more so from the student point of view. Students were confused, especially if you are at risk junior student. You would be confused when to go to a professional advisor and when to go to your faculty advisor, because again, that wouldn't be clear to the students entirely. Also, faculty advisors were not ready at the time to cope with changing policies and interpretation of these policies for the students. So completely assigning advising of junior and senior to the faculty advisors was too much, and faculty felt that they didn't have time for that. So what we did, we actually, after the study, conducted a focus group with our faculty and asked them what were their perceptions about their involvement in the advising process. And since our institution has quite complex policies, they felt that that was something they didn't have time for, and that the technology that we use in providing advising services also was something that they had to learn. Again, something they didn't have time for. So what the institution decided was to go back to the centralized structure. So that's where currently we are. All advising is provided by the professional academic advisors. So looking at our experience, really, sometimes we might ask a question: how do we decide what's the best model of academic advising? What's the appropriate advising model for your institution? Is there such a thing called ideal model? If you look at the research, some research indicates that probably the shared structure is really the best, and especially the dual model, because students benefit the most. They take the advantage of the expertise of the faculty, but also the expertise of the professional advisors. What I would really like to stress out is that at any organization, any model can be effective. What's really important to evaluate is which model is best for your institution. So I will talk briefly about what's recommended by researchers in terms of what are the factors that need to be taken in consideration when you are deciding on the model. There is something called macro and micro level consideration. So, for example, at the macro level, what's important to pay attention to is the size of your institution. For example, can faculty provide service to a very large number of students? If you're a very large institution, probably the faculty only model, as this in decentralized structure, would not necessarily be the best model. Probably some form of a shared structure, either split or total intake model, could work better for large institutions. What's the type of the students? What's the composition of your student body? For example, if you really have high number of at-risk students, or high number of undecided students, or high number of unprepared students, then you definitely need to ensure that these students, they are provided adequate support. You need specialized staff who can provide advising services for the undecided students, for the at-risk students. So again, maybe some form of a shared advising structure here would work better, or centralized full-time professional advisors only, because you can hire people only, you can recruit people who are specialized only in advising at risk, and then divide the load among the professional advisors. What is really the role of the faculty at your institutions? Like, do you intend to involve them in providing the institution guidance on the institutional policy, or the way you are involving faculty in advising process is really career advising? So again, that's a question to think about when deciding on the right model. What is really the nature of institutional policy? I really want to stress this out, because from our experience, when we try to involve the faculty, this was one of the issues we faced. Because again, if your policies are really complex, we I mean, expecting faculty to interpret these policies is maybe too much. So maybe it's better to have a central office, which where the coordination is definitely easier, where you train advisors who can interpret these policies for the students and guide them on the right path. And really, very importantly, what is the mission of advising at your institution? Do you see advising as merely registration, or advising as more developmental kind of approach? So if the shared mission of academic advising is really to be more proactive, then maybe you need more professional advisors, either in a form of a centralized structure or a centralized model. At the micro level, there are a number of questions that need to be taken in consideration, at least it's suggested. So this one is really interesting because it focuses on 5 main questions. The first one being, what kind of advising are you delivering? I mean, what again, going back to that mission. So are you delivering developmental advising? We all are familiar with that term. It's been now there in literature for quite some time. Appreciative advising. A proactive advising, like in our institution, we are now really going into introducing more and more proactive approach. So if you are introducing that, professional advisors are definitely needed. Is it really prescriptive advising? That's like very old approach, but maybe that's something that is being implemented. I'm not sure. On the other side, where is the advising delivered? Is it within the college? Is there a centralized space at your institution? Is it within the department, in the faculty's office? So that space, concept of the space is also very important when deciding on the model. Again, who is providing advising? Is it, when we say faculty, do we mean like faculty teaching the course, or teaching assistants, or graduate assistants, so, or professional full-time advisors? Also, how? And we will get back to how, because it's really important in terms of online advising. So are we doing some combination of face-to-face, email, online, group advising, class visits? So if you are adopting these different models, again, you would need professional academic advisors. And also, how often do you want students to come and visit academic advisors? If you are expecting students to visit once a semester, maybe a faculty can manage that. But if students are expected to do, for example, more than that, or they need to for whatever reason, then professional advisors would be needed. I will stop here in talking about the different models and the ones that we implemented. If you really want to read more about any of this model or how to decide on appropriate structure of advising, there is so many books out there where this is explained in much more details. So this is just here for your reference in case you would like to read more about different models and different structures of academic advising. Now I would like to reflect on what did we learn from our experience. So again, collaboration between all stakeholders is really crucial for effective and efficient advising. Really, regardless of which structure or which model you choose or your institution adopts, collaboration between advisors and the college will happen, even if they are not formally or involved in the structured way. Advisors will still collaborate with the faculty. So for us, from our experience in the colleges where we had a good collaboration with the college, any model could work, and any model actually really worked. It was successful. But where the collaboration wasn't that good, really, the model did not meet our expectations. So really, the determining factor is not which model you choose, but rather to what extent you collaborate effectively with the college. Did all stakeholders really come together, to contribute with their unique expertise to benefit the student success? Another thing is the ongoing professional development. So regardless, again, what model you select, professional development is the key to keep advisors motivated, updated, definitely on institutional policies, make sure that they are resourceful, that they can refer students. So in professional development, they can learn about different strategies, they can learn about what other centers and other offices are providing, so they can refer students, and really most importantly, this networking with other support providers. Also, recognition and reward. As I said, in most models, this is the one where faculty really kind of pointed out that advising was not seen as the primary responsibility, and they were not recognized for academic advising. What faculty was recognized for is scientific academic research. So advising was seen as an additional task. If you are involving faculty, there must be a mechanism for recognizing their contribution to advising and rewarding them. And of course, allocation of necessary human and fiscal resources. Even if you are adopting a centralized structure of academic advising, if you don't have enough professional academic advisors, the model would not work. That's what we learned from our experience before. Like when we just centralized, we did not hire enough advisors. So we wanted to involve faculty without actually ensuring that sufficient number of professional advisors are recruited. So really continuing with our story, how did online advising fit into all of that? So how online advising, how all this experience helped us get into the pivot or transition to this online environment. So just as for all of you, in a very short period of time, and I'm talking about literally days, we all had to move all our services online. So for most of us, really delivering advising services online was not entirely a new topic. We either delivered some specific services online and used some form of online advising with specific cohorts of students. For example, at our institution, we did deliver some form of online advising using mainly phone calls. And that was specifically done for the students who were not able to come to our offices for whatever reason. So for example, a student who had an advisor hold and could not come to our office would call in for a phone advising session and have their hold removed then. So there was some practice of online advising via phone. Also emails, right? So as advisors or as support providers, we exchange with students daily lots and lots of emails. And in these emails, we provide specific guidance on study plan or clarification of specific policy or sharing a specific resource, like, for example, manual, how do you book an appointment with a writing lab to get help with your assignment. So all of this is a form of advising, really, and providing support and guidance and advice to the students. Also, we use social media, right? So social media can primarily be used to promote the services, but at our institution, we also use it to provide other advising services. So for example, at our institution, we advertise like important institutional deadlines and policies, and students would then ask questions, which we will respond to with guidance and advice. So there was an exchange of information on the social media accounts of our offices as well. So really, this concept of online advising is very limited, very, very limited and very restricted, but it definitely did open up the discussion about online advising and providing more and more services online. We did have many conversations about how we can introduce more online programs, we're in the process of planning, and we were really in the process of planning for these programs and creating them with a plan to introduce them really gradually. But what we never aimed really was to transition to online advising completely and provide all services online. So this really pivot to online, this complete movement of all advising services online, this complete shift from face-to-face advising to online came as a big surprise to all of us. So as the online became our new reality, we were taken aback by the question, how we do what we do really in an online environment. So as advisors or other support providers, we provide different services to our students. Just to give you a couple of examples from our institution, for example, we deliver workshops, we deliver coaching sessions, we deliver one-on-one advising sessions, face-to-face sessions. At our institution, we also conduct class visits, for example. So the question is really how we do what we do that just in an online environment. This is the question for us to think about as we move forward with this session. You can, just to remind you, write your comments and we will discuss them towards the end of the session. I would like to really hear from you about your strategies adopted by your institution in this worldwide pivot to online environment. These are just some of the questions that I have put up here for us to discuss. And at this moment, I would like to see if there are any comments or any questions from the chat.
Elma, would you like me to read them? Would that be a little easier?
I think I can see them. So
Okay.
please remember some just... So I can see from Dr. Courtney, what advising model are you using at your university? Full intake in QU by professional advisors. Then I can see Career Development Center advising students on academic tracks and how they will lead to specific careers. Students are also assigned to a faculty mentor, and that may or may not be a productive relationship, but it obviously mainly focused on academics. We are in the process of hiring an individual in our wellness department to provide coaching services focused on student success and well-being, less academically oriented, but looking at how to combine academics and personal wellness, whether that is emotional, physical, mental or social. There is a question to Elma, what's the borderline between advising and admin work? That's a really good question. So in any academic advising, in process of academic advising, there will be an admin work involved, which is exactly what the faculty usually, from our experience, didn't really appreciate, because at our institution, we have to do a lot of documentation, and we use the system called Appointment Manager, where advisors are expected to document advising sessions so that we know what were discussed, what were the issues that are pending to be resolved for the student. I would say that any advising profession would involve a good amount of that admin work, depending on how you divide the admin work. But documentation is part of the advising session because you share those comments with your students. So it's kind of a summary of what was discussed and what have you agreed. It's really more like a success plan for your advisee, so he knows or she knows what is expected from the student, or what's the plan for the next semester, because students can refer back to that, those notes, if effectively the session is documented, and really use those notes to plan for the next semester or to plan seeking academic support. Also, we use these notes to refer students. So we need to see how many students are being referred to different support providers so that we can provide more services and maybe put more emphasis on providing service. I was just running a small survey asking our advisors who are currently advising online, what are the challenges they are facing. And the one thing that came up was the admin work is definitely. So from that point of view, like, I think a good balance is a key here. So not too much, I don't think advisors should be focusing too much on this admin work, but really on providing quality advising services. I see another comment. We must provide appropriate environments for our students in universities and contain them by providing advisor services to them with templates acceptable to them and take into account their privacy. Definitely. We have kind of adopted this at our institution. The question is how we do this really online, right? So how do you take into the account the students' privacy? I was just again reading those comments from the advisors, and the one thing that came up is providing an advising session to the students, at-risk students. And what happened is that the students are not really comfortable. They don't have a problem with doing a session online, but the problem was that their family could hear the advising session taking place, so they wouldn't like. And sometimes the cause of students falling at risk could be linked to the family issues, right? So how do you expect students to open up completely in that online environment where you can provide a support? So how do you protect the privacy of the student in that sense? That's definitely a big challenge in this online pivot. Please share how you have done the online pivot at your university. This is for all participants to share. Okay, so that's just again another comment. In fact, some students like remote advising as it gives them a sense of security and they feel free to speak out about their issues. Definitely. So we just attended, I just attended one session this morning where we talked about, so what do we do when we go back, when things go back to normal? I don't think that online services will completely replace face-to-face session. This is the point I would like to raise. But we definitely will need to continue providing online services, online advising. Because some students prefer it and some students really prefer the face-to-face sessions. So what we need to make sure is that the students are given opportunity to engage in the advising process and receive advising in whichever method works for them best, whether that's an online session, either via email. The online session can be video call or just an audio call, or they may be more comfortable chatting, maybe more comfortable talking on the phone. So any form of online or face-to-face. So we need to make sure that the students are given these opportunities. So as I'm waiting for more questions or more comments to come in, I will draw your attention to the questions that we have here. So how do you build an improved relationship with students in an online environment? So in face-to-face advising sessions, we are really looking for those nonverbal cues, right? So to see if the student really understood the policy, or if the student really is facing any kind of academic difficulty or personal difficulty. Individual domain, you especially the student is not turning the audio, so it's not face-to-face, you don't see the face, but it's just an audio call. That part, the nonverbal cues are not visible. So how do you ensure the student is really engaged? How do you even assess that? And what is really the best strategy to pivot to online advising? Do we just replicate the best practices of face-to-face advising? I think this is a big challenge, because if we are trying to replicate everything that we do in face-to-face, I mean physically face-to-face in our offices, and try to replicate that entirely in the online environment, that could be a huge challenge. So maybe I would like to share with you this quote from the programs where they from people who have been doing distance learning for quite some time, and this is the quote that really revealed some things for me. Some students in distance learning programs and courses report feelings of isolation, lack of self-direction and management, and eventual decreases in motivational levels. Maybe, I'm just saying, maybe our students are feeling that way. Maybe they love it. We don't really know at this stage. I know from the advisors, I've been talking to some of the advisors on our campus, and some of them are saying actually our students are very happy with online because it's very convenient. You just call your advisor. There are so many mediums, and I'll talk about them in a minute, and the advisor will respond to your needs. You don't have to go to the office. But are there students who are having feelings of isolation, lack of self-direction and management, and decrease in motivation? Also, we need to really be careful. I'm sure we might have both of these categories in our student population. I wanted to see really for myself, since there is no study conducted as we speak at the institutional level from the student point of view. So I went on our social media accounts and I found lots of comments like that. I can try to translate some of them, but most of them are really saying that they miss the institution. They miss the environment, the university environment. They want to go back to the university map. Not necessarily, this is from our academic advising accounts, these comments that I took. So we definitely have students who want that, but also, as some of the advisors pointed out to me in my conversation with them, we have students who love it. So when things go back to normal, I don't think we can completely replace physically face-to-face advising with online, but we will definitely be expected. And I'm talking about from the student point of view, we will be expected to continue to provide some services online. I'll refer back to some of the comments as they've been coming. Nowadays, students are very blessed with professional academic advisors who is there all the time to help and guide them. During our time, faculty model was the only model, and in fact, they did not do much to guide and support us in our study journey. So yes, that works for the institutions that have adopted professional academic advising model. We do still have institutions where faculty only model is being applied. So yeah, definitely having professional advisors can be seen as an advantage. Another comment just came in. The best strategy for online advising is focusing on the core business and then gradually add other aspects of work, like workshops, coaching, etc. Yes, definitely. So I was going through some of the strategies from the conversations that are happening worldwide in terms of how do you really ensure this transition or this pivot to online is smooth. So we all know that creating any online advising program really takes a long time. So we cannot expect our professional advisors, our faculty advisor, or in fact any service provider to deliver the same quality of the services in a matter of days just in online environment. So that takes time. So as Majid pointed out in the comment, definitely we need to gradually introduce. So for example, for us, we stopped doing workshops. We're not doing workshops online. So we just focused on one-on-one advising, which is now happening online. Definitely we might need to consider doing workshops online, but that needs to be properly planned and introduced gradually for the students. So that's one point that I would like to highlight. Another thing is to make sure that advisors really are ready to pivot to online advising is like the one thing that needs to happen is to assess how prepared are you to provide advising remotely. Do you have all the material ready for you? Do you have access to all the systems that are crucial for advising? In our case, Banner, for example. Do you have a VPN access that you can access student information remotely? So preparing yourself with all of this is crucial really to make this transition smooth. In our institution, what we did is we dedicated like those 2 days really just focusing on preparing advisors with all the support necessary, creating manuals, getting all the technical support needed to provide the services, and making sure everyone is really ready to deliver online sessions. We have heard in different sessions during this conference about ensuring that you stay positive, calm, and you show empathy, because you will encounter students who are finding this extremely difficult, who might have some family members affected by the virus. So it's a difficult time for all of us, and you will have students who are enjoying this, as somebody pointed out. So what we need to make sure is that we need to acknowledge that all of these categories exist, and we need to provide we need to talk to the students in different way. Going back to Majid's point about gradually introducing certain services, providing only essential information. So in this time, at least at our institution, things change, right? I mean, I'm sure that's happening worldwide. Things, even the policies change. The policies in its original form doesn't change, but the guidance on how to implement these policies is changing. So what we need to make sure that we don't overwhelm our students with too much information. They cannot keep track of it. So neither can we, right? So it's very important that we provide only essential information, only necessary information. And it is crucial to communicate that information very clearly. So we need to say, as of this and this day, for example, the guidance that came from institution, because that might change the next day. For example, in our institution, there was changes in terms of withdrawing from a semester and the penalty for that. So that came in and was immediately communicated to the students. That was that was an essential information that needed to be communicated right away. So not overwhelming students with too much information and picking on what's important for them to know during this time is really, really important. We have also talked in other sessions about responding quickly to the student needs. Now, when you are in your office and students come and they, like, especially if it's a peak time, advising peak time, students can see a line of students waiting to see the academic advisors. So they're more patient. But in an online environment, they don't see that. So their expectations are higher. They want to make sure that their call is immediately responded to, or the email is replied to, because they cannot see that. So occasional email talking about, like when you try to call somebody, say we are experiencing high volume of calls, it's important to remind students that we are not that we are busy with other students. So maybe a note on whatever platform you are using is crucial, because their expectations have increased. Farjana, I will get back to your comment. So Farjana is saying, we can use online advising to be more advantageous by adding more flexible hours for students, such as evening shifts. So that's exactly my next slide, right? So be flexible with your advising schedule. So students, like, okay, so they are at home. So if we open up an advising slot at 8 a.m. in the morning, most students will not come to that morning, like unless most of the students are really morning people. But we need to be at this time, as the transition is happening still, we really need to be more flexible and try to offer some shifts even in the afternoon, and trying to be flexible what works for the students well. So yes, I think that will happen in the transition to the online environment. Also selecting suitable space, right? So if you are delivering advising and there is a lot of background noise, either from your end or the student's end, can compromise quality of the advising session. Again, as I was talking to some advisors, they did point out that this was a challenge they were facing. Advisors could not provide effective advising because there was so much noise coming from the students, from the students' account, because even they are facing that issue with the space. So we need to acknowledge that. At our institution, we use different systems to provide online advising. So currently we are using Microsoft Teams, WebEx, and we are using Zoom or just phone and email. Some students prefer one or the other. What's important is that if you prefer personally one of these tools, you can say your preference, but I think students need to be given an option, because also faculty are using all of these tools and some other. So there is so many out there that students might get confused. So it's really important to give students these options. I'm going again to the comment saying, academic counseling is now more advanced by utilizing technology to communicate with students. Yes, definitely. Yes, I agree with that. We use lots of technology right now. As I said, Microsoft Teams, WebEx, Zoom. Also, we use something called Appointment Manager at our institution. So I have a disagreement here. I may disagree with Farjana. It gives a sense that we are a customer service or call center. Yes and no. Depends on how you approach your advising session. I see your point, because we don't like to see advising profession as a call center. But what we try to do is to create a culture of an appointment. And in advising, we don't allow, well, we allow to some extent, but most of our online sessions are really scheduled. So students takes a scheduled appointment with advisor and then joins in. So that's quite different. It works the same way that it worked in a face-to-face environment. Students would take an appointment and then come physically. Now they take an appointment and they come online. We cannot deny the challenges related to remote advising. First of all, it's a new experience and we did not get used to work from home. Also, INB, SSB, AM are inaccessible sometimes because they're down and take time to process the data. Generally, I don't think remote advising can replace face-to-face, and I could not agree more. I think I've said that. I don't think that online advising will ever completely replace face-to-face, but we will need to introduce some forms of online advising, because we cannot just go back to exactly the way things were. Now that students are getting used to online advising, maybe in a more structured way, maybe in a better way, but we will maintain some advising services being delivered online. Internet connectivity is an issue as well. Yes, this is the #1 problem advisors have reported that they are facing right now. Issues I've identified is that building relationship and rapport with my advisees is getting affected in some cases. Definitely, I mean, what you do in a face-to-face advising session cannot be replicated online, and the quality at some point will be affected. Majid, I believe providing more flexible hours only means accommodating more needs. We have student population that are working, etc. Depends on type of advising given. So that's explanation by Farjana to Majid comments. I don't have further comments. And I would leave the remaining 10 minutes or so for the discussion or any additional questions.
I want to thank you so much, Elma, for this really informative session. I actually got caught up in watching it, so I really enjoyed your session, and I'm sure everybody else enjoyed your comments today. I'd like to direct everyone's attention just briefly to the comments section, to the chat session. We have an open meeting for the Manassa board, and it is at 11. So we've put the link in the chat, and we are encouraging everyone who can attend, to ask your questions, to give your comments, to give us feedback about what's going on in the region, what you thought about the virtual conference, what issues you're having in your areas, in your countries, at your institutions that we can help to address through the Manassa NASPA organization. Again, I want to thank not only Elma, but all of our participants and presenters who've done such a wonderful job over the last 3 days. It's not easy to do a virtual conference and you don't get the same kind of feedback you do when you deliver information in person, but folks have really done a great job putting things together. And I'd also like to thank our NASPA colleagues who, again, got up in the middle of the night to help us host sessions like these. If you have further questions for Elma, please feel free, again, you can put them in the chat, but in the meantime, you can also log off, take a break, and join us again for the open forum that we'll be having at 11 o'clock. And again, the link is in the chat. So thank you so much, everyone. Elma, do you have any closing comments you'd like to make?
Thank you so much, Dr. Courtney. No, I really, I'm still, I can still see a discussion going on in the chat box between really different, where do we draw the line between presenting ourselves as a call center versus support provider. So that's an interesting discussion. I think we need to discuss this further and see how this really evolves. Thank you so much for attending, everyone.
All right. And with that, again, thank you. And we look forward to hearing your views and comments at our next session.
Thank you very much for this